Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and this is my monthly ranking video for the month of March 2019. Here we are, the end of yet another month, and a month that seemingly flew by like this. But the start of a new month means the latest video in a series of videos in which I rank all of the films I saw in each and every month of the year. So in total, I saw 14 new release films in the month of March. Now, there are several I wasn't able to catch. I actually missed more this month than I usually do. But you won't see films such as Nancy Drew or Climax, which I know is very popular out there, or The Dirt on this ranking because I just wasn't able to get around to seeing those. So that left me with 14 films, both theatrical release and Netflix, to include here on my ranking. Now, disclaimer, this is just my own personal list. This is how I enjoyed the films. Not even necessarily how good of a film they are from technical standpoints, or how much they made at the box office. Nothing else counts outside of my own personal opinion here. So without further ado, let's jump right into the ranking. In at number 14, aka dead last, I have The Beach Bum. So I just posted my full review and rant on this film because I really did not like it. So this film is pretty divided amongst critics and other people I know that have seen it. I just could not get on board. I thought it was morally bankrupt and pretty much stupid overall. Nothing we haven't seen before from these actors. Snoop Dogg was by far the highlight, but outside of that, there really was nothing to like here for me. I did not have a good time with it. But if you want to hear more ranting and raving about the problems I had with the film, go ahead and check out that rant and review. But The Beach Bum was easily last place for March. At number 13, I have Captive State. So 13 and 12 were really neck and neck, really close when it came to this ranking. However, I decided to put Captive State here at number 13 because of just how dull it was. A sci-fi thriller horror with the talent involved here had no right being this boring and dull. Nothing really happens. There's zero character development, so you don't get invested ever in the process of the film, and that's a big problem. The visual effects I thought looked cool, but everything was so dark and dingy in its color palette. The story was all over the place and incoherent. So a couple of decent action thriller set pieces with some nice visuals can't make up for a complete lack of anything interesting. Ultimately, this ranked down to number 13 instead of 12 just for enjoyment factor. I just didn't enjoy myself watching it. At number 12, I have Wonder Park. Obviously, it's down at number 12, but Wonder Park easily could have found itself at number 13 as well. But what lifted it above Captive State was that the message rang true, it came through very nicely, and there were some fun sequences. There was a fun atmosphere to the film and a genuine sweetness to the message itself. Plus, some of the character designs were cute, so it had that going for it. However, Wonder Park was very clearly aimed at a specific demographic, and it didn't veer very far outside of said demographic. The jokes just weren't for me, and they did not land with me. The story was very simplistic and very straightforward. Our characters mostly rang as annoying rather than endearing, and that animation style really bothered me. I did not like that weird fisheye lens that made these big old like bubble heads right in the screen, or the fact that we would like bounce in and out of this like first person shaky cam style of filmmaking. The animation itself looked like it could have been positive. I just wish I could have seen it through a proper lens, and maybe I would have been able to appreciate this film more. It was bright, it was colorful, but overall it was aimed squarely at a very young audience and wasn't able to captivate those of us not squarely in that target. At number 11, I have A Madea Family Funeral. Y'all already know that I have fun with these Madea films overall. I get some good laughs, and this film certainly had some good laughs. In particular, the scene where they are in the hospital and Madea is just slapping other characters. I laughed out loud and thought it was actually really funny. And Madea herself in the film, her and her interactions with Joe and Joe's interactions with everyone else were fun. They were funny. That's what I go to these films for, are Madea and Joe. And those characters delivered. Plus our cast, introduced me to a new celebrity crush, that's for sure. However, the melodramatics were very melodramatic. Tyler Perry continues to box himself into a sitcom style of filming, whether it be camera angles and lighting, to the script and dialogue. Just his entire direction as a filmmaker clearly is meant for television and not the big screen. Plus, that new character Heathrow that he plays in here is a total miss. I did not like that character at all. Hattie ranges from super annoying to funny, and Bam is just kind of there. All the other straight characters that aren't there for laughs don't really work, which is a shame because I do think the actors were trying to give us something, but they didn't have much to work with. So, melodrama to the max. Felt like a soap opera set to the big screen with a lovable Madea still there to rise it above the other films on the list. At number 10, I have The Aftermath. This is a little bit of a shame because I wanted to really love The Aftermath, and I came out thinking, meh, overall. The big problem with this film is it spreads itself so thin and tries to accomplish all these things, and it never accomplishes any of them because of that. It doesn't give us a good romance. It doesn't give us like a juicy, sensual type of romance film. It doesn't give us a historic period piece drama, but yet it tries to give us all of those things, and thus it fails on every level. The biggest problem is that our main conflict between Keira Knightley, Jason Clarke, and Alexander Skarsgård doesn't have chemistry. It has a glance, it has a look, it has an argument, but you never feel the stakes. You never feel the urgency with Keira Knightley's character. There's not a good internal conflict throughout the movie, so it's hard to really get engaged in what it is her character's doing. Plus, the sexiness just kind of was lacking overall. Thankfully, it has lush scenery, beautiful costuming, beautiful actors. So the scene is set for a really great, lush, romantic period piece. Unfortunately, the script lets that setting down, and we're left with a meh, serviceable time with a romantic period drama. At number 9, I have The Hummingbird Project. This film was just kind of all over the place. What gets it above The Aftermath and the other films on this list? It has more entertaining moments. Particularly, Alexander Skarsgård, here he is again, gives a stellar performance in this film. I thought he was so good, so transformative. It was a really wonderful performance in a mediocre film. Plus, I do think some of the comedy worked. Some of our set pieces and scenes in this film were actually very entertaining, really quick-witted and smart. But then it swings all the way over to the left where everybody's unlikable. You really dread watching what it is you're seeing, or you're not following along with all this lingo, or we're just sitting here bored listening to them talk about trade speed. The Hummingbird is just such a tonal mess that jumps from satirical comedy to super artsy, philosophical, existential type of drama. And those swings are too dramatic, too drastic, and they really hurt the overall pace and enjoyment level of the film. So that's why The Hummingbird Project sits at number 9. At number 8, I have Triple Frontier. So first of all, what a cast Netflix was able to assemble for this original film. And it's all held up by a wonderful, just beautiful performance from Oscar Isaac. He is by far the standout for me in this film. He is our lead, and he's a great lead man here. He was great. Pedro Pascal, I also thought was a standout who delivered a really strong performance. Charlie Hunnam and Garrett Hedlund are both strong. They're solid. They do what they need to do. Unfortunately, though, I kind of felt like Ben Affleck was sleepwalking through the role. There just wasn't much there. And that's kind of how I felt with this film. There are exciting moments. We get really thrilling shootouts. There are moments of suspense that work really well. But unfortunately, our characters are so one-dimensional that it's hard to be invested in their mission. Not to mention, the mission itself is very straightforward in concept, but they find a way to make it feel so convoluted that at a certain point, your brain just turns off and you don't really care anymore. There are so many twists and turns which do keep you a little bit off kilter, yet somehow they're never unexpected. And ultimately, at the end of the film, I kind of just thought, well, what was the point of that? So much seemingly happened. There was a lot of movement on the screen for not much or anything to happen at all. So Triple Frontier had moments of glitz, moments of excitement added in to an overall really hollow feeling film. And that just doesn't work for a great heist thriller. At number 7, I have The Highwaymen. I know, I put The Highwaymen over Triple Frontier when it comes to the Netflix head-to-head. I'm just gonna be honest, I enjoyed watching The Highwaymen more. Kevin Costner is great in this film. I really think he gives it the groundedness it needed in tone and in feeling, in character, and his performance really holds a lot of the film together. Woody Harrelson is fine in the film, but he definitely pales in comparison to the gravitas that Kevin Costner is delivering right next to him. And then we have Kathy Bates, who has a very small role, but she pretty much steals every single scene she's in. I loved her in this movie, and I wish we had more Kathy Bates. But this is the old Bonnie and Clyde story, just told through a little bit different of a lens. And it was a pretty interesting lens overall. We have some fun set pieces with shootouts and car chases that worked well. But really, the entire film lays on the shoulders of the chemistry between Harrelson and Costner, of which mostly it works, and that's why I enjoyed watching the film overall. Now, saying that, it does look like a TV film. Netflix was definitely the proper place to go with this one. Nothing that really makes it stand out, and it's telling a story we all already know, and a story that's been told better. But for what it was, I enjoyed it, and that's why it was number 7. At number 6, I have 5 Feet Apart. This one wins for biggest surprise of the month. I didn't really know what to expect. Films like these either go shockingly well, like 5 Feet Apart did, or they're like terribly bad, like way off the mark, no thank you. But I thought this was a very charming, very authentic, sweet little teenage romantic drama. First of all, it felt genuine and heartfelt when it came to the disease it was depicting, which is something that many of these films can't quite say over the past few years. But outside of a few overly schmaltzy grand gestures from these teenagers, everything felt a lot more real and a lot more grounded. These characters felt relatable to you as an audience member, and I think a lot of that comes down to the performances and chemistry of Haley Lou Richardson and Cole Sprouse, because I think they were both fantastic. Particularly, Haley Lou was stellar in this film. She is so relatable, so endearing. I thought she was absolutely lovely. She sold the charming bits, she sold the dramatic, more serious moments, she sold everything in this film, and I thought she was really, really good. Cole Sprouse is also very solid in this film. He plays his character well. I really enjoyed the nurse in this movie. I really enjoyed that aspect to the film. And overall, I just found it to be a really sweet and endearing little romantic teenage drama. So it's certainly one of the better ones we've received in the past decade, and I really enjoyed it. 5 Feet Apart comes in at number 6. At number 5, I have Dumbo. That's right, all the way up at number 5, I have Dumbo. But what can I say? I enjoyed myself quite a bit when it came to Dumbo. And that all hinged on the success of creating Dumbo as a character himself, and he was perfect in this movie. First of all, the CGI work on Dumbo was amazing. He looked so good. And honestly, all of the animals themselves looked amazing in this film. But Dumbo is the real feat here because he was so cute while still maintaining a certain level of realism to him. That texture on his skin was just outstanding, but he always kept that like cute, whimsical nature to his design. And then in animation, he was so cute. Such a beautiful, endearing little character that you couldn't help but fall in love with. And those scenes, those flying sequences, were magical each and every time. Partially through the animation and the camera work that was done, the cinematography was gorgeous, but in big part to Danny Elfman's score, which I thought was stellar. I really think Elfman knocked it out of the park with this one. Plus, I loved that we got a new story. We didn't just rehash the old classic Dumbo, but yet we still paid homage with several nods throughout the film. I thought this was the perfect case of really paying that homage to the original while still creating something of your own. Now, it has to be said that outside of Colin Farrell and Danny DeVito, the human characters didn't work. Unfortunately, these children are pretty bland, and those kid actors didn't do much in the roles they were given. They were definitely necessary for the story we were being told, but and then Michael Keaton was just a no. I thought he was pretty terrible in this film, honestly, and his whole storyline I could have done without. And that's the big problem with Dumbo, is it's a little bit overbloated. It's a bit too much for the story we wanted to see, but the heart is there, the wonder is there, the cuteness is there, and that's kind of what made me fall in love with the character and, to an extent, the film at large all over again. At number 4, I have Captain Marvel. Now, I'm sure many of you will think this is too low, but yet many of you will probably think this is too high. But for me, it's just about right. Now, I loved Carol Danvers as a character, and I really enjoyed her relationship, in particular with Nick Fury. Samuel L. Jackson killed it in this film, as did Ben Mendelsohn. He was so good. Jude Law was really good. Annette Bening made everything out of this really small role that she possibly could make. Plus, we had a lot of minor characters like Carol Danvers' friend that I really gravitated towards and thought worked really well. We had Goose the cat, who was super fun, a great addition to the MCU. And then a load of 90s nostalgia, which, hello, as a 90s baby, I am all about. The action was a whole lot of fun in this film as well. Plus, we got like a nice little mystery. Good solid outing for Marvel to finally put a female-led superhero flick onto the big screen from their company. However, Captain Marvel just kind of was lacking for me. Some of the visuals, lacking. Extra levels of excitement, lacking. The script at large, lacking. So while I had a lot of fun with Captain Marvel and definitely wouldn't mind seeing it again, I've already seen it twice in theaters, it squarely falls in the category of fun, perfectly fine Marvel film. Not one of the MCU's best, not one of the MCU's worst. It was just a solid entry, and thus it ranks at number 4. At number 3, I have Gloria Bell. So I really liked this movie a lot. First of all, Julianne Moore is amazing in this movie. I think she gives one of the best acting performances I've seen so far in 2019. She was so good. And all of our cast actually was good, top to bottom, including Michael Cera, who we all know can be quite dodgy. But this was such a funny and insightful film on loneliness, honestly, about having kind of a midlife crisis, a coming of age story for a middle-aged single woman. And I thought that was such an important story to tell, and they did it wonderfully. Not to mention, I thought it was really funny. I laughed quite a bit throughout the film. There are just moments of complete absurdity that worked really well for me. And while I would yell at Gloria Bell through the screen over the dumb decisions she would get herself into, I still enjoyed getting into them with her. Now, I do think stuff such as The nudity was a bit gratuitous and not entirely needed, at least not that many nude scenes were needed. And it does find itself coming up just a bit short of telling like a fully rounded story. But I had a blast watching Gloria Bell. I thought it was much better than I had anticipated heading in, and honestly, it definitely was one of my top 3 favorite films for the month of March. So coming in at the runner-up position, we have Hotel Mumbai. I loved this film. I thought this was a really strong, powerful, intense thriller. Based on true events from 2008, this movie really grips you from the start, and it does not let off your throat the entire runtime. I was tensed up on the edge of my seat pretty much the entire runtime. The filmmakers do such a wonderful job of taking us through this hotel and putting us into perilous situations. This is a thriller. It lives up to that namesake tenfold. Plus, it's a great representation of everyone across the board. It has a quick but very effective education on Sikhs and what that means. And that needs to be said because unfortunately it's something that many people don't know about, and it was handled effectively here. But of course we get Muslim terrorists, but also Muslim heroes and protagonists. We have all of these wonderful hotel workers who had the spotlight shined on them for this because honestly, they were heroes here, and they were all Indian hotel workers who did some really great things. But everything is shot beautifully, and the minor pitfalls of a melodramatic moment here or there, or a little shallow character development, hardly detract from the high impact this based on true events thriller made. This was a really solid film that I highly recommend checking out if you have the opportunity. So coming in at my number 1 position, I have Us. No other film from the month of March stuck with me after viewing like Us did. I still think this is a beautifully, just expertly crafted horror film. First of all, I think the symbolism of like the haves and have-nots is done in such a sophisticated way. The outsiders, the lesser thans, that all I thought was handled beautifully. And I think part of the reason people are having such a hiccup with this film is they're taking it a little more literally than I believe it was meant to be taken. But that's just my personal take on it and why I seem to really gravitate toward it and love it. The sound design in this film is the best of 2019 thus far, and honestly, I don't know how it can be beaten because the sound is perfect in this movie. Particularly, my favorite scene in the film is this really choreographed movement near the end that is set to that horror remix of 5 on It. That blew my mind. Even watching it a second time, I was just like in awe at what a masterfully crafted scene that was. Lupita Nyong'o, amazing. What a performance from Lupita. I know that she's getting some backlash over how she decided to do one of her characters, which I respect that she's coming forward to say such a thing and to apologize to anyone who may be hurt from that. But I do have to say that I think we're being a little bit harsh on Lupita when we haven't been this harsh on others who have quite literally depicted somebody with a disability in a much more literal, straightforward, and offensive way. Just my 2 cents there. But respect to Lupita for acknowledging and choosing to own up to something that may be offensive to a more disadvantaged community. Winston Duke was great. I also thought the comedy was super funny and fun in this film. It was a wonderful, just entertaining mixture of horror and like really brutal, intense moments with more lighthearted, fun, cheer type of moments. I thought Us was great. I don't know what else can be said about it that hasn't been said a million times over in all these theories and all these discussions about the film, but it was certainly my favorite movie-going experience of March 2019, and in honesty, my favorite film from the month at large. So that is my personal ranking of all of the films I saw in March 2019. What did you think of my ranking? And more importantly, how would you rank the films you saw in the month of March? Share your rankings either in the comment section down below, or you can hit me up on Twitter. I love you all so much for your continued support. Mwah! Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!